Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lax rats alike, welcome back to another episode of the Crease Dive. Today is Thursday, May 5th. Conference tourney season is upon us. It all gets going later this afternoon at 1 p.m. as St. Joe's takes on LIU. I'm Jordy from Barstool. With me, as always, we've got Dukes on the mic, and we're also bringing back everyone's favorite guest. He's our resident nerd from the Ivy. He's the people's commissioner of the Ivy League, and pretty decent dude to boot. We've got Larken Kemp with us again this week. So, boys, how are we feeling as we enter this first full weekend of the postseason?
Larken, take it away. You're our guest.
I'm just incredibly excited, boys. I don't think there's anything better on the planet than MAAC lacrosse. We got an unbelievable slate of games. When you add the kind of incremental fact that Brown's hosting, and since we last chatted, when Brown was kind of dead and gone on a 3-game slide, they're arguably the hottest team in lacrosse other than Maryland. So I'm on cloud nine. The people's goalie, who's really my guy, I feel like I've kind of been a part of his origin story, was just voted Ivy League goalie of the year. So it's just a great day here, and really, really excited to ship up to Providence and be there in person.
He didn't say anything that I can't echo. MAAC lacrosse is, when it starts turning up, all eyes are on the sport. You got the momentum going into the PLL season, going into Memorial Day weekend. So it's just an exciting time to be a lacrosse fan. I said it last episode, it's the time to get your friends' eyes on the TV. If they're not a lacrosse fan, it's time to get them to be a fan. So I'm excited for this weekend. It's going to be a great slate of games.
Before we even get going, I do want to issue a quick apology, or I think an apology. I'm not like that sorry about it, since we're bad with names anyway, but apparently we've been pronouncing the people's goalie's last name incorrectly this whole time. I've been big on the Thoreau pronunciation. Apparently it is Terrio.
The thing about the people's goalie, he's who we need him to be. In my mind, he has no last name. He's a representative of the consortium of players who never made it to the D1 level based on body type. And he is that guy. So he can be whoever you want to be.
He's a goalie.
In my mind. He's the man. I'm all in on this kid.
All right. Well, first name Peoples, last name goalie. But just for Mrs. Peoples goalie out there, for his mom, just Terrio maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
Got to keep the moms happy in May, especially this weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, and make sure you guys send a special one to yours.
I'm no pronunciator by any means. I think everybody knows that, but you could give me 100 guesses to how to pronounce that last name, and I would have never guessed Terrio.
It's a great name. That's a great sports name.
Little
no doubt
Terrio.
about it.
Shout out Little Terrio.
Yeah, just seems like I don't know. I was going with the real hockey French Canadian Thoreau vibe there, but apparently I was wrong. But I might have been wrong about that pronunciation. But Larken, I mean, this is your time to take another victory lap about how correct you were about the Ivy from the get-go this year. As we head into this Ivy League tournament, I mean, there were 5-6 teams all fighting for those top 4 spots to get into the tournament. Unfortunately, Dartmouth, better luck next year, guys. But either way, I mean, just 6 insane teams in the Ivy this year. It comes down to 4 in the conference tournament, but there's still very much a discussion and argument to be made that at least 5 teams should be making it into the NCAA tournament, especially if you're a nerd who trusts the computer more than your eyes and go straight for the RPI. But Larken, you said right from the jump that the Ivy, they were going to be hungry, they were going to be dangerous, and they were going to get after it early and often this year. Everything that you said seems to have come true. So, take your victory lap on Brown, but also, again, just with how much of a gauntlet this Ivy's been.
I appreciate it, boys. And I mean, what a remarkable season. I think front to back, I think you could argue the most talented and most complete top-down league perhaps we've ever seen in our conference. Candidly, I work in the entertainment business. If you would pitch this script where you say, we're going to have Princeton beat Georgetown and Rutgers in a span of 7 days, and they're not going to make the Ivy tourney 2 months later, I think the director would have been like, that's crazy. That'll never fly. The way in which this all played out, to have Princeton on the outside looking in when many people think they're the most talented team in the conference, to have a young Harvard team surging in the 6th position who has a very valid argument mathematically if you take the logo away when you talk about the NCAA bubble. And then all 4 teams that are going to be up in Providence this weekend. Seems like all of them are going to be tough outs in the tournament. What an unbelievable opportunity, all eyes on Providence. And I think those games Friday night, winners guarantee, a top 5 seed, in my mind, top 6 seed, and right to host a team on their, home campus in the NCAA tournament. So just what a remarkable season. Really proud of the coaching staff, the kids. Can't say enough about, the hand they were dealt and how unfortunate it was, and for them to stick together and come back and make the type of statement they have. I mean, for all the ACC stands in the world to be crying on Twitter and, wherever they cry about the math and the RPI, like, give some credit to those kids. Like, they went 37-10, I think, out of conference, beating up on some of the best teams in lacrosse. Like, if you want the RPI to look different, like, win your out of conference games, and the Ivy League did. So credit to them, and, credit to all the boys and the senior leaders.
Dude, you got anything over there?
What, to respond? Was that about?
Or
I don't know. I still fucking hate the RPI. I think the RPI is bullshit this year. I really do. I mean, I get the argument. I get the way that you're saying that it helps the Ivies this year compared to the ACC when it usually helps the ACC in every other year. I get, but I just don't see a world where Duke right now, and I'm a big beginning of the season kind of throw out the window. I don't really believe in February lacrosse, and I get that you have to win your games in February, but it's just hard for me to sit here and be like, Duke wouldn't compete or beat all the Ivy Leagues right now.
Yeah, but that's just not the selection committee's job. So, like, let's take Duke. By the way, I think Duke is a phenomenal team. I do not want Brown to draw them in the first round if they get in. Let's take Duke's losses. Did Duke lose to Loyola and Jacksonville? Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's look at Harvard's losses. Harvard lost to Ohio State on the road, Yale and OT on the road, Cornell on the road, and Penn on the road. They also beat Princeton and Brown. Like, if you go team by team and actually work through the bubble and take away the logos, take away the eye test, because that's not the job of the committee. If you actually look at the math, like, Duke and Notre Dame, unfortunately, put themselves in this position. Like, there's no one to blame but themselves. Like, if you actually look at Notre Dame's losses, they're all phenomenal. I get that argument. They lost to Georgetown, Georgetown, Maryland, Ohio State, right? But who did they beat? Like, who was their best win?
No,
well, let's not sleep on Detroit Mercy.
Yeah, and Notre Dame does this. Like, I said this on the last episode that we had, where I actually understand why Notre Dame is on the. It's unfortunate that they're on the bubble, but they do this every year where they don't schedule that many games. It feels like, and you lose 1 or 2 of these games, and you could find yourself in a shitty spot. Especially this year when the Ivy was dominating, especially out of conference play.
Totally, and what people need to understand, like, this is a system. This is a mathematical algorithm that has protected the ACC and blue bloods everywhere for decades. Like, if you are a Patriot League team, if you are a CAA team, you can't schedule hard enough games to ever be in the conversation of having a top 20 strength of schedule. No one will play you. Like, there is a reason that when North Carolina went 8-6 in 2016, they were able to get hot late and win the NCAA 2A championship. It's because of this exact RPI system that all the ACC fans are now complaining about. Like, it's just math. At the end of the day, this is math. It's not anything other than that. And let's take football, a sport we all know and love. I think we can all agree that there's times where, like, a 2 or 3 loss SEC West team, you could argue is like the 3rd best team in football. Does that mean that they belong in the college football playoff? Hell no. You got to beat Bama. You got to beat Georgia. You got to win the SEC to go. And if you don't, you need to have 1 loss, period. Like, the ACC teams did this to themselves. Honestly, I think it's crazy to even have the conversation. I think that this has become this, like, like, revenge of the nerds, and, like, everyone's like the Ivy League, they're going to fail. People think back to, like, the Drexel Penn game, and, the Ivy doesn't have any precedent for beating teams in the tournament. Like, A, that's not the selection committee's criteria. So, like, it doesn't matter. And B, Yale won the national championship in 2018. It's like, I don't even really know what that means.
I don't know.
Can I make a quick – I just want to make a quick confession. I actually don't know. I don't hate the RPI for any other reason besides the fact that it's just, like, math and computers, and I don't know how it's formulated. Like, that's the only reason why I actually hate it. And, like, looking at the RPI, like, I think a lot of it, besides like I'm always going to be down on Rutgers until they prove me otherwise, and that means that I'm always going to be down on Rutgers until the day I die. So like the fact that they're so high up there, doesn't make sense to me. But like everything else, like looks about right on the RPI. Like as like maybe like a few minor adjustments here and there. I just love to shit on it because it's made by computers, and we're gonna get overtaken by them one day, and I'd rather be like on this side of history now instead of having to flip flop once the Terminator shit goes down. But like no, like I it does suck for like the some of those mid-major conferences, like you said, like they're never going to be in a position where
they have to run the table. They have to win their conference.
Where that's going to help them out. At the same time, realistically speaking, like is a mid-major going to be that much of a threat in May? Not necessarily. Like I mean maybe like if we're talking about like is the Patriot League is that, but Patriot League's like okay, Finn's up. Jacksonville will run the table this year.
Yeah.
You can make the argument that like maybe when Loyola won in 2012, like that was like Patriot League, I guess, a bit of a mid-major. So like they were able
to mid-major, I think.
Yeah, they're like right on the bubble. I would consider them. But either way, what I'm getting at here is like, yeah, it sucks for some of those teams in some shittier conferences that like the RPI is always going to get some of these teams with more losses in the ACC into the tournament more. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, well, those are the teams that are going to be playing in those last 2 weekends of the season.
The most interesting part of this conversation is the ACC's internal decision to stop their conference tournament. The ACC decided that they'd rather rest and play out-of-conference cupcakes like Virginia playing Lafayette and then rest for 10 days to get Matt Moore healthy, okay? And they made a personal decision to not play a semifinal and an ACC final that could have boosted their strength of schedule. So it's more just fascinating. It's like an actual strategy argument, right? Where this is the one year they needed it. Every other year, they typically don't need it, and it looks brilliant to cancel the tournament.
Or maybe the ACC, they're a little less selfish than the Ivy League, and they're saying to themselves, okay, like Lafayette, like you guys are an up and coming program. Yeah, like let's give you a little boost in your strength of schedule. We'll get you on the tail end. We're probably going to be resting some of our guys for the tournament. This is a good chance for you guys to come in and get a good win under your belt. And it's like, it's not their fault that Lafayette didn't step up to the challenge.
Lafayette's usually a good team year in, year out.
I don't know. Like it honestly though, it seems like the Ivy League, they're elitist at the end of the day, and they're not going to play anyone like Lafayette at the end of the season to help them in. They only care about themselves. They're going to beat themselves up. And I don't know. It's just, it looks, all I'm saying is it looks that way. Okay. That's what people are saying. I'm not the one saying it. It just looks like the Ivy League being typical elitist.
This also isn't I hate how it's turning into an Ivy versus ACC thing, because we've been high on the Ivies. We've been saying how right you were all year. So this isn't an Ivy versus ACC thing. This is an ACC versus Big Ten thing. Like the Big Ten getting 3 teams in is more bullshit to me than the ACC getting three teams in. Like, I like the argument that if Rutgers loses to Ohio State, who the fuck did they beat all year? Like, they have the 24th strength of schedule. Like, who did they play all year where they deserve to be top 6 in the RPI, in my opinion? That's where that's where I start struggling with the RPI. Like, do I think I'm not even that. This is like, I think Penn could be the most talented. You're talking talent-wise on a roster, the most talented team. In my opinion, that's what I think. I even was like, I really don't know how you put them into the tournament, but I mean, you can't deny it because of the RPI. I fucking hate how we're talking about Ohio State and Rutgers, as that's who I think is going to get upset in the first round to the Drexel. Like you're talking about, like people being scared of the Ivies. I don't know why Twitter is turning this into an Ivy versus ACC thing when everyone should turn their attention to the ACC versus the Big Ten, because that's the biggest bullshit. The only reason probably Ohio State is in, obviously, over Notre Dame is because of that win in South Bend. But I don't know. I just think it's very frustrating to watch, especially as a Notre Dame fan, that Notre Dame playing their best ball on a hot streak, Pat Cavs out of his mind. They got the best goalie in the nation. I'm sorry. Sarge, the people's goalie. They have Notre Dame has the best goalie in the nation.
Noted. Fuel to the fire.
Look, if Terrio goes on a master class in this tournament, I motivated him. It's all I could do. But yeah, it's frustrating to see Duke's offense seems like it's clicking. Notre Dame's playing their best ball, and one of those teams is going home. Like, that's frustrating to watch. It's probably a little bit more frustrating because right now it looks like it's going to be Notre Dame. If it happens to be Duke, I don't give a fuck, honestly. Like, Duke is always in the tournament. They had a shit out-of-conference schedule. I wouldn't care if it was Duke that missed the tournament. I'm mostly just arguing for 3 teams in the ACC because I want to see Notre Dame play.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, you guys are making all the right points. Like, if we had the top 20 coaches in college lacrosse make a list of who they'd like to play least in the first round, Maryland's the obvious one. Georgetown, depending who you want to put as 2, there's a very real chance that some of the ACC programs being references on the bubble this year are very close behind because of the talent, because of what we talked about. But the reality is, like, that's just not the committee's job. And Dukes nailed it. There was a couple of very specific results that flipped the math between ACC, Big Ten, and Ivy. One of them is what happened at Arlada. Ohio State, after losing to Cornell, going to Arlada and beating Notre Dame, has created like a trigger, a wave of math that has kind of continued to compound, right? That's how all this stuff works. Like Princeton beating Rutgers somehow, because they candidly have a lot of easy cupcakes on their schedule, kind of has this like inflated win-loss, and they've lost to the right people, so it isn't weighing them down. And it's all these things we talk about. So listen, no one wants to like game plan for the Kavanaugh twins or Brennan O'Neill. Like, we can all admit that. Nobody wants them. But the reality is, I think a lot of people are hoping that that's a playing game. And when you look at the actual math, it would be more surprising than not if the committee makes an argument to get them both in. Like, I would be very surprised and candidly fascinated about the interview during the selection show. Typically, the head of the committee comes on when he talks about if the loser of that game, if Duke loses or if Notre Dame loses, when he talks about giving them an at-large, I'll be very fascinated by the argument.
Do you know, we had Chris Jast on last week, and he was saying how the RPI has been a little stinky this year and hasn't been as like fortified as it has in years past, and he's saying it might be like a COVID thing. He was saying that, but he was basically saying that the committee could not throw away the RPI, but might not use it as it has in the past. It might rely a little bit more on the eye test. So what do you have to say about that? If that happens,
no question. I mean, listen, there's countless examples of, it's like typically the RPI is incredibly helpful for seeding. Like you kind of handle a lot of the easy teams. So like take the 8 teams that you know are going to be in the tournament, right? It's all the automatic qualifiers, right? It's the teams who are just like wagons and somehow get either bid thiefed or ultimate, like if you play Maryland, right? If there's like a wagon who's the 2 seed behind a Maryland type team. So like some of the Ivies as an example this year are going to be in where the eye test and where the human factor and head to head and location. I think I brought this up with you before. One of the bullet points is location. They try and limit travel to 400 miles, and they try and only use 2 private charters. That is a huge piece of this. Okay. And that ultimately like shapes these decisions, everything I just referenced. So yeah, there's no question that there's going to be some funky seeding, and there's going to be teams that probably are like in the 10 range who get seeded in like the 14 range, or vice versa. Like one example would be this. I could easily see them sending either Princeton to Rutgers or Rutgers to Princeton because it's close, right? I could see them, if BU runs the Pat League, I could see BU being sent to Brown just because it's an hour away, even though candidly, I'm not sure Brown's deserved that. Like they might deserve a tougher matchup, right? So there's all of those things that come into play, and they do every year.
That's fair.
So I think
easy way to fix that. Josiah, I know that you're pretty liberal with the checkbook. You can just write the. I mean, I hate putting money in the NCAA's pocket, but if you could just fund the tournament and then just send teams wherever they need to go, and then that way no travel restrictions necessary. So shout out to the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, by the way. All right, but listen, I mean, again, I think, Dukes, I'm glad that you brought up that point where like we don't hate the RPI because of Ivy League versus ACC.
Yeah.
We just hate the RPI because it's going to help out the Big Ten, where we don't think that the Big Ten deserves any help. If anything, I think just find a way to get us 2 SoCon teams into the tournament. That's all I really care about.
I don't care. 2
SoCons, as many Ivies as we can.
I don't care if there's 4 Ivies in, 5 Ivies in. I don't really care if there's 2 ACC teams in. I just think that if there's going to be 2 ACC teams in, it should be Virginia and Notre Dame. Like that's where it comes down to for me. Like I will argue my way into anything just to get Notre Dame into the tournament.
But there's only one guy to blame. It's Kevin Corrigan. He's incredibly conservative in his scheduling, and he just doesn't schedule enough games. Like Notre Dame is unquestionably better than their math, like their output. If they kept playing games, like if the season was longer, they would, no question, be like a top 4 seed probably. They're arguably like the 3rd best team in lacrosse. But the reality is like they only played 13 games. Is that right? Like they're always on the low end.
They're always like 1 or 2 games behind everybody else.
That's why I said I understand why they're on the bubble. And maybe you're exactly right, and I'm mad at the wrong person right now. But you being the math guy here, out of all of us, hear me out. If Rutgers loses 18-12 to Ohio State, would they be on the bubble?
There's just a whole bunch of things that are going to go into it. I would define Rutgers. All of these teams are on the bubble. I would include Brown on the bubble. I would include Penn on the bubble. Some of them are just like sooner to come off the bubble, right? So the bubble to me is incredibly large. It's that entire bulk of teams from 6 in the RPI to about like 14, right? Mm-hmm. And depending obviously on what happens, I mean, there's a couple of like huge moments, right, in all this. I think the first nail in the Notre Dame coffin or the ACC coffin in terms of the 3 bids was Princeton missing the Ivy League tournament. I think one of the easiest outs for the selection committee would have been if Princeton had beaten Cornell and hosted, they would have only let in 4 Ivies, and the out would have been, regardless of the math, it would have been whoever missed. You weren't good enough to make your conference tournament. You're not good enough to make the big tournament. Like that's a corporate line that gets used all the time in some of the other selection shows. Like I've seen it used in like the NCAA hockey and the basketball stuff. Like if you're not good enough to play in the Big East, you're not good, like that type of thing. So I think that was like a really bad luck moment for the ACC because Princeton missing, they're still going to get in because they're 3rd in RPI, right? Yeah. And now it becomes way harder, especially depending on who wins this Friday. If like say Brown wins, I mean, they're not going to miss obviously. And if Yale or Cornell, I mean, they're going to host. So to me, that was nail number 1. And then obviously the other big thing that everyone's watching out for is bid thieves. Like Denver. If Bill Tierney pulls a rabbit out of his hat and beats Georgetown at Georgetown, the ACC is dead and dusted.
Said it once, said it twice. I'll say it at least several dozen times again. The Big East, tomfoolery is always afoot in the Big East tournament. They do it every year.
Here's my question with that. So if there's a bid stealer from the Big East, whether it's Nova or Denver, whoever it might be, would it steal a bid away from the ACC and the ACC only gets 1 team in, or do you think it steals from the Ivy?
I just think it tightens the bubble. You can't think of the bubble as this like conference-based like slots. It's not like horse racing where you like load the horse in and it's kind of like conference-based. It just literally takes a bit away from the bubble. When you actually do bubble math, like what I always picture, you guys know old school when Frank is like debating Jim Carver, when he's like just yelling nonsense. Yeah. Like someone has to go into this round table and argue why Duke or Notre Dame or whoever deserves to be over. Like to me, the only teams you could argue those teams in over are Ohio State and Harvard based on who's on the bubble now. I don't think you can make any form of argument. Right? Okay, here's an example. We want to talk about Penn. Penn beat Duke in Long Island. We can't let them in over them, right? Head-to-head matters. Like, it becomes really hard to justify. Like, Princeton, okay, they beat Georgetown. Like, there's all these things to me. So the bubble, I think the last 4 teams on the bubble, in my mind, are in no particular order. Duke, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Harvard. I personally think there's no way 6 Ivies get in, so I just think Harvard's in a really bad luck scenario, even though their math actually looks pretty good. So if a bid thief occurs, now you just lose a spot. It's the same teams, and now only one of them's getting in instead of 2, right?
Yeah, and I know it is only lacrosse, but when you're talking about like the art, do you not think to some degree where they're trying to get more eyes on the sport, on these TVs, on ESPN, that they wouldn't be like, well, Duke or even Notre Dame have a bigger fan base, have a bigger reach, have more money maybe than these Ivy League teams, so maybe it is just better for us as a corporation to put two teams in the ACC on the screens.
Yeah, listen, it probably is in terms of impressions. Like you've hit all the correct points, like in terms of like media ratings and lift and merch and all that stuff. They still need to have an argument. What is that argument? Are they going to say that on the advisory regional poll that Notre Dame was like 1, so that they just had to put them in? I guess they could.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know how much it really does.
Is there? Let me put it this way, Dukes. It would be for people who like study the bubble. Like there's like those nerds out there who just love bubble analysis. This would be a shocking inclusion if both get in. Like and this is not me trying to create drama. Like it is literally going to be shocking to people who have done this for decades if they concoct an argument to get them both in.
Dukes, I think you just said the part that you're not supposed to say out loud. Like you just said the quiet part out loud. Like I that makes total sense. Probably will end up happening.
And because here's what I was also thinking is, to the hardcore lacrosse fans that listen to the pods, do the bubble talk, do the bubble analysis, they'll be outraged. But that's a quiet 1%. Not a quiet, but like they're loud on Lax Twitter, but it's a 1%. To the common person, they'll see Duke gets in and they're like, oh, that's okay, yeah. And then you'll be like, well, like they lost to Penn, and they might just be like, well, yeah, that was just an early season loss. Like I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if the NCAA did something shady and like did something that was fucked up.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be the first time.
To your point, I wouldn't be stunned. By the way, we haven't touched on it. Mark Emmert, see you later. Enjoy retirement. Bozo, one of the all-time takedowns for the boys. Obviously, probably had no impact, but just being on the right side of history there means the world to me. Yeah, I mean, listen. To be honest with you, boys, I think it's going to be a remarkable television, the selection show. I mean, you're talking about some of the blue bloods of the world getting left at home, right? And for it to be these kind of like pipsqueak type teams that do it to them, it's just makes me chuckle.
It also is. It is sick. It's so sick that we do have Notre Dame versus Duke for basically a playing game, like tournament starting. Like this.
Correct. That was the spin zone that I wanted to bring up. To me, this has actually created this like incredibly fascinating atmosphere around two games, Ohio State, Rutgers, right? Because no one's beating Maryland, obviously, in that conference tournament. But that semifinal is like massive for tournament implications. And then Notre Dame, Duke, I mean, that's going to be a madhouse. Is that in South Bend? I mean, when was the last time those two teams? When was the last time those two teams played for this much in the sense of like, you could argue this is like the season. I mean, this is the equivalent of like when they played
2010. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Title. This is like literally like when Perk went off for 5 goals in like 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. Like this is going to be an unbelievable lacrosse atmosphere. I'm sure that all the stars will play well. Cavi will put in a ton. O'Neal will rise to the occasion. That matchup with Cohen will be phenomenal. So, the good news, and that's like the real spin zone. The good news is you could argue it's just like expanding the bracket.
It is. It's basically we'll look back if they don't both make the tournament, and lacrosse people will be like, no, we know they did make the tournament. One team went home a week early.
Right.
Real quick.
Arlotta's gonna be bumping. By the way, I don't want that to get lost.
Sunday in South Bend, it'll be 67 degrees, mostly like
Saturday.
Perfect. No, they play on Sunday, don't they?
Inside Lacrosse has it Saturday, May 7th.
Ivy final Sunday.
Ivy final Sunday. So is the all right. Well, either way. All right. So that's,
I just want to make sure the weather's right.
You're right. All right. So hold up. Weather report. Yeah. I'm not a weather guy. But according to weather.com. All right. So 62 degrees. Again, just great day drinking at our lot of weather. The hill's going to be bumping. All right. So Larken, you already mentioned how the selection show is going to be some primetime television on Sunday. But let's talk about some more great entertainment that'll be coming our way. We're going to start off with the Friday games, because I know that that's what everyone's here to listen to. We'll work our way back around to the games that are happening later today, the Thursday slate of games and all the conference semifinals. But real quick, let's let's just get right after it with the Ivy League semifinals. They start Friday at 6 p.m. You've got Cornell taking on Yale. All these games being hosted in Providence. Larken on scene? Yes, no?
Wouldn't miss it for the world. There's literally nothing that could come across my calendar to get me away from this stadium.
The fact that it was even a question to begin with, that's on me. Hand up, my bad. That's a -1 on my stat sheet. But we've got Cornell and Yale, 6 p.m. So the first time that these two teams met, and this is something that we say all the time, it is always difficult to beat the same team twice in 1 year, especially when we're talking about a conference that's so tight like the Ivy League. So first matchup, it was a 13-12 win for Cornell. Chase Erlin with 18 saves on the day. This was a game that came down to that final possession. I think pretty sure that was the same weekend as Princeton, Penn, that overtime game. I think that there were 3 games in the Ivy that weekend that all came down to that
opening weekend.
To that final possession. Cole Kirst had 4 goals for Cornell. So, a 1-goal win for Cornell earlier in the season. Do you boys see the Connor Busick keeping this train rolling and getting it done again against Matt Brandau and the Bulldogs?
You want me to go first, Dukes?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, this is a fascinating matchup, guys. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. Let me start by saying Andy Shea deserves benefit of the doubt in the Ivy tourney. His record at coming in as like the 2, 3, or 3 seed on the road and ended up winning it is spectacular. With that being said, what is fascinating about this matchup to me, so Yale traditionally is actually a defensive-oriented group. The strength of their team over the past decade has been slide recover under Cliff Baxter. And when you think about Ty Warner and Mark Lassini and some of the unbelievable short-stick D-mids they've had, supported by really, really good close defensemen, that is not the strength of this Yale group. This Yale team, and I watched the whole game against Harvard, they're giving up goals in bunches. I mean, they're losing games, giving up really high scores. The strength of this team is Matt Brandau and their explosive young offense, okay? So when I go to the tail of the tape and I try and patch together what I think is going to happen against Cornell, now we look at Cornell. Cornell is remarkably up and down, specifically over the last month. They kind of had that slump encapsulated by kind of a couple of beatdowns at home against Army and Brown. And then I thought, through 15 minutes against Princeton at Princeton on a day that was supercharged with energy because Princeton's women's coach, who's been there for like 100 years, is retiring, absolute madhouse. They looked as good as anybody all year. They were buzzing. So it's really hard to kind of nail down specifically what that offensive group will look like for Cornell. So the way I'm going to simplify this and ultimately make my prediction, I'm going to go to one matchup. Yale drives through Matt Brandau. Cornell has a guy by the name of Gavin Adler, who I think is a shoo-in to be in the Schmeister conversation, is as good as any close defenseman in the country. And to me, if you can neutralize Brandau and force some of these young kids, Johnson, Lyons, all these other guys to beat you, you got a really good chance of success. I think for that reason, based on the fact that Vegas sees this to a degree as like a coin flip, I see it as a slight edge to Cornell. I'm taking Cornell 15-12 with an empty netter late.
It's tough to argue against the reasoning and the breakdown. But like you said earlier in your argument, I just don't like to bet against Andy Shea, especially in May. He lost a close one earlier in the year. The way that Yale came out fired up against Harvard, and they both go through the ups and downs. My thing is why I would take Yale. Cornell played probably their best ball all year last week, and at some point, I feel like in the last month especially, they're going to have to return back to the median. I think that's the right term. They're going to have to return back to the normal. I don't really like the ball that they were playing over the past month. I was kind of down on them. I kind of have to stick to my bones. I bought Yale early when everyone was out on them. When they lost to Penn State. So this is just more like an ego thing. I have to take Yale. I sold Cornell a couple weeks ago. I bought Yale early, beginning of the year. So I'd be a fraud if I now decided to take Cornell. So this is really just an ego thing for me. I'm taking Yale. I think that Brandau is probably. I think he's there. I saw this graph today where it was showing just how far and away he's been as an offensive threat, especially in the country. He should be a top 3 in the Tewaaraton race right now, and it's just nobody's talking about it. So. I'm going Brand.
No, he's very good.
Yeah, I'm going.
And by the way, everything you said about Shea is totally correct. Yale is the safe pick. Like, they deserve that. They've had the postseason success. There's no question that they could make me look like an idiot. I just more mean in terms of matchup design. I think Yale would have preferred anybody else in this tournament to draw in Cornell in the first round because of 77 and Ithaca, who's just a grown man. Like, he is a monster.
And I will say this: it doesn't matter who wins this game because the winner of the other game is winning the Ivy.
Wow, I love that out of you.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Dukes, I'm gonna pretty much just piggyback on everything that you said right there. You know, I know that they've missed the past 2 years as of all the rest of the Ivy, but I still think that Yale has that a little bit more of that pedigree. I mean, I do think it comes down to, though, kind of what Larken was like, your number two. So, you know, if you figure that Adler and Brandel, you call that a wash. And then what? You probably put Chris Fake on Piatelli at Cornell. That's probably a bit of a wash. So then it just comes down to, I mean, either Chris Lyons or Kirst for Cornell, like whoever can kind of step up and be the guy to, you know, win that second matchup for that offense. Cause all these Ivy League games this year, I feel like they've all been high scoring. They've all been close. So, you know, if you can get your second guy to get hot, now who knows? I mean, maybe this is just one of those games where either Piatelli goes bananas or Brandau goes bananas, and that matchup with their top defender doesn't really mean as much. I'm trying to look at the score right now, though. I'm trying to think about how high on the Brandau family I'm going to be, because Chris Brandau has so he transferred to Dickinson College this year, so he's playing a little D3 ball, and they are currently, as we are recording this right now, playing my Ursinus College Bears in the Centennial Conference semifinals. So if Dickinson takes down Ursinus with Chris Brandau between the pipes, I'm going to hate the Brandau family, so then I have to go Yale. So for right now, I'm going Yale, unless, you know, I can go back in here and edit this out if Dickinson beats Ursinus in the Centennial Conference semifinals. Fair. And then I'm hammering Cornell. So that's my pick on that one.
I have one more note on this game. With the respect to coaching, Patriots guy here. I've always said I hate when it comes down to matchups. If I'm unsure, you know, you got the Rams versus the Patriots. Who are you taking? I look at it down to this: Belichick versus like a first-year head coach in McVay. So I just think, at the end of the day, Shea will be able to game plan better than Busick will. Will Busick be able to game plan better in 5 years? Possibly. I think his future is very bright. But for right now.
No, listen, that's the safe pick. It's like I referenced. I think Busick is up to the challenge, but there's no questions. Shea deserves the edge there. Two other matchups to look at, obviously the dot and in goal. Specifically, these are two programs, so in my opinion, have had like up and down goaltending.
100%.
If either guy can rise to the occasion, that could easily be the difference in a 1 or 2 goal game. And then the last thing, obviously, you got to stay out of the box. No stupid penalties. You know, as the field tightens, there's this expression in playoff hockey. Obviously, you just got to stay out of the sim bin, man. Like, that's how you lose big games late.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't impressed with Yale's goalie. I don't call out names when they don't play well, but I'm not impressed with Yale's goaltending. But that is a very fair point. I love the over in this one. The over could be 42.5, and I take it.
Looks like that is going to be, I have the wrong lines up, so who knows? But yeah, hit the over on that one. And then on to the game of the week. I mean, just drop whatever you are doing. If you had any plans to begin with, cancel them right now, because at 8:30 on Friday night, your ass is going to be parked on your couch, or if you're close enough to Providence, you're going to make the drive out there. 8:30 opening face-off. We've got the Brown Bears hosting the tournament, and they've got a matchup against Penn, who sneaks in there as the 4 seed. Earlier in the season, these two teams met up, and this is when Brown, the backs were against the wall. Season was pretty much on the line, coming off of 3 straight losses. Brown needed a get-right game, and they needed it fast, and they got it against Penn. They came away with a 12-10 win, and that was after being down 5 goals in the first quarter. So come from behind, pretty much season on the line. they turn around, and then ever since they haven't looked back, and they've been playing some of the best ball outside of Maryland out of anyone in the nation. So Larken, this take it away.
Yeah, listen, it's almost emotional for me. It's been a hell of a ride, quite the journey, like the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. To give credit to the staff, and this is something Mike Daly's done for 2 decades. Like what Dales did, better than anybody in D3 at Tufts was like he always seemed to play his best ball in May. The team always seemed to peak at the right time, and we haven't really seen that yet at Brown until now. Nobody, and I mean nobody, when you turn on the UMass film after that 3-game slide, thought that this team could go through the gauntlet of at Penn, Yale at home, at Cornell, and go 3-0. I mean, that is just big boy bully ball. And also the way they did it was just really impressive. I'm just so excited for these kids and this staff. It is going to be a madhouse. Hard to put into words what this scene's going to look like. One of the things about playing at some of these blue bloods, you almost take it for granted as a fan. Every game feels big. When you play at a place like Brown and the capacity is 3,500 at Stevenson Penn Since, I mean, it's going to be a Woodstock type environment. Like kids are going to be climbing over the fences. This stadium has not seen that type of energy since 2016. I'm just really happy that these guys get to experience it. Starting the league 0-2, losing a heartbreaker to our rival Harvard, and then getting blown out by Princeton. Who could have guessed that they'd be hosting and in a position to win a game on Friday night at home in front of their own fans to probably guarantee that they host a top 6 seed playoff game in the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's just incredibly exciting. I'm so happy for them, and I can't wait to be a part of it. It is a who's who of degenerates from Brown alumni who are making the trip. Like Andy Towers is leading the pregame. Like it is the roster of guys that we have assembling at the parking lot at 5 p.m. sharp is stunning. Like it would make any bachelor party proud. And to get into the matchup a little bit out of respect for it, because I actually think it'll be really fun for even a casual lacrosse fan who's uninterested in my biases. These are 2 very similar groups. And let me kind of unpack that a little bit. Neither of them are south-north, X-dodging, initiating heavy offenses. They are big boy, downhill, old school. Sam Hanley's going to start every other possession for Penn. Ryan Oghaven's going to start every other possession for Brown. We are going to attack poles. We are going to test short stick deep midfielders. We are going to put a ton of pressure on your backfill and your pop and your rotate. All the different things that make it fun to play 6v6 defense. That is exactly what this matchup will test. Both sides of the rock. It's just going to be incredibly fun. Like Ryan Oghaven is playing as good as anyone in the country. BJ Farrar is one of the best LSMs I've ever seen on film in terms of feet and his ability to pivot. He is that good. Like if you love lacrosse, watch that matchup. Adrian Enschel is a name not many people know. He's one of the strongest dudes in the country. What is Sam Hanley really good at? He's just bigger than everybody. There's a reason Enschel can hang in there. He's just a freak of an athlete. And our short stick D mids are phenomenal. Trevor Ebo, Cody, George Pike, Grayson Wolfram, all these kids have been busting their ass. And I'm just so excited to watch. People are going to be shooting the shit out of the rock. It's high and heavy. It's People's goalie versus Birkinshaw. I mean, this is why you play, man. 8:30 under the lights, whole world watching. Can't wait.
Real quick, Dukes, before you jump in, since I already had weather.com pulled up, a little weather report for this game. Going to be 65 in Providence, maybe a little cloudy, but that right there, that sounds to me like Andy Towers tarp off at the pregame tailgate, and that's got to give Brown an automatic 2.5 goal edge.
I mean, the tailgate is going to be stunning, boys. That's the thing about Brown State. Like when we're up, we rally hard. The chirp would be we're seasonal. When we're down, like we're not as consistent. I'm there, but other guys aren't. Like this, I'm telling you, this Amtrak that's leaving 2:00 from New York, it is literally packed to the gills with degenerates.
I've been on that 2 p.m. Amtrak. I know exactly which one you're talking about. That's hilarious. But yeah,
it's going to be amazing.
I know Augie. I'm friends. My roommate in college is friends with Augie Oghaven, and I'm not friends, cousins. So I know the whole entire family's gone up there. I've heard all about the tailgate. He was trying to convince me, recruit me to go up. I was like, this is not my time to steal shine, or not steal shine, be a part of something that I wasn't part of all year. So it sounds like it's going to be fucking wild. I don't know how anybody with a brain can look at this matchup and not take Brown with the ball that they're playing. And I think that this is obviously going to be a close one. But like if you look at Penn's losses, I think that we broke it down last week. It's like their 8 losses are all by 2 goals. Their 6 losses are by like 1. So I like Brown to win this one. I have 2 Garden City guys on this team. Augie's one of my best friend's cousins. So like it's just a really easy rooting interest, and I think that Brown comes home with the Ivy title.
I love it. I mean, if you want my prediction, I'm sure we know where I'm going with this. I'll call out one specific position group. I think that the non-poll initiating, so not number 42, not Ryan Oghaven, what Reed Moschietti, Griffin King, Jack Kelly, who's got an incredibly bright future, what they've done over the last month, settling in, decreasing turnovers, gaining leverage, and hitting the appropriate throw forward or money pop rollback to initiate our offense and get us rolling north-south. Our entire attack group has like Canadian influence. Devin McLean, Brian Antonelli, Glavin. They need an inch. If you hedge off them at all, they will make you pay. None of them are great dodgers. All of them are great finishers. Our midfield group laid their nuts on the line when we were 0-2 in the league, and they said, boys, get on my back. I got you. And they've done it. I mean, I went to that Yale game, boys. Andy Shea was stunned when he gave up 20. And we made it look easy. Like we were filling the net. I think this is a game where we announce ourselves to the national landscape. I think Penn's been playing good, not great. I think we kind of run away early and they ultimately close late to kind of make it interesting. But I'm anticipating 17-15, never really in striking distance.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I'm not going to be the guy who picks Penn while we have Larken on.
Yeah,
here.
You are.
One because I don't want to lose him as a pal. So I'm not going to do it. Put the pen away. You don't have to mark me down on a list. I'm not going to do it. What I am going to say is this game is going to be amazing because, you know, you roll back to what Brown needed in that first game against Penn. They needed a get-right game. Penn, you know, they're coming off of 4 wins in a row. Nothing really that stood out as okay, like this is a team that's really getting themselves back on track, right? Like they went through their slump like most of these teams in the Ivy have done at some point this season, right? They lost 3 out of 4 games and things were looking a little rough for Penn after getting off to such a hot start. So they lose 3 out of 4. They've come back and now they've won 4 in a row, but none of them have been in like commanding fashion. Also like a win against Albany at this point in Albany's trajectory as a program, it doesn't really do much for me. You know, good gutsy win against St. Joe's, but like this is right now, because no matter what, like Penn's gonna be in the tournament.
Totally.
Just
Penn's a really good group, no question.
So they're going to be in the tournament, but they are now in need of a really good win to get them going the right way before they get into the NCAA tournament. So kind of the same thing that Brown needed the first time around. Like that's now Penn a little bit, you know, maybe their backs aren't totally up against the wall like Brown was back then, but like still like their tails are like a little tucked between their legs. Now, who knows? They let the legs open and that tail comes around and it whips Brown a little bit. I'm not going to say it. I still am going to go with Brown. I'll put my, I'll put all of my,
no, I mean, listen,
on the line there,
yeah.
But I think that this is a game that is going to be it's going to be back and forth the whole time, and I do think that Penn probably out of anyone in the nation, the best battle tested in tight games like year after year, because they just refuse to ever get shit pumped and they refuse to ever just curb stomp anybody.
Yeah, they have, listen, to give them credit, they have all the ingredients. Like they have the best player on the field, pound for pound, and Sam Hanley. Like he could just go off. He could do things that are superhuman and kind of stretch the imagination, even if we're playing perfect structured defense. They also, to your point, are incredibly battle tested. They have like a top 5 strength of schedule every year. Every kid in that lineup has played all the big boys consistently. They're not going to be scared by the environment. And to a degree, there's a pressure when you host. There's a squeeze the stick and want to put on for the local fans. And I get all that. Like if I'm taking off my homer cap, I could easily see people thinking coin flip. I could easily see people making the other argument. I just, having been on the road with this group, feeling the mojo, the karma, the momentum, I literally just think there's a swagger in that locker room right now, having made it through that Ivy gauntlet, that I just don't anticipate this train not rolling on Friday and really just filling that net. So I'm rolling with the Bruno.
If I have to say something nice about...
That's enough of a sell for me. I'm in.
If I have to say something nice about UPenn, I also think Shipley, if it does come down to a game and UPenn pulls it out, it's going to be a James Shipley game winner. Like,
yeah, he's a swagger hound. Anyone who has like 2 OT winners in 2 months he's cool with me.
It is. I will say interesting. If you look at Penn's schedule, that they have 3 1-goal wins against Penn State, Nova, and St. Joe's. They're wins, so they count. But you know, if they just go the other way, what are people saying about Penn?
But again, the Philly rivalries, you can't.
Yeah, you said this though before St. Joe's. You said that it wouldn't be like Villanova.
No, I'm just saying. No, I think that's even St. Joe's is a great team this year. I think they're going to be a scary team to have to go up against in the tournament, especially when you have to go up against Zach Cole in the faceoff act. So you're not going to be getting a ton of extra possessions in that one. So let's just listen. A Philly school getting out of another Philly school with a 1-goal win. That's big time. But yeah, so I mean that right there, that's the Ivy League semifinals that gets going on Friday at 6 p.m. And then you've got 8:30 with Brown and Penn. Real quick, we're just going to go through the rest of these conference semifinals. I know that a decent amount of these teams might not have been able to watch or catch a lot of their games. So might not know a ton about everybody playing this weekend, but still a huge weekend for everybody around the nation. So things get going this afternoon. So Thursday at 1 p.m., St. Joe's hosting the NEC tournament, and they will be taking on LIU. So earlier in the season, St. Joe's beat Long Island 14-10, hosting the tournament, playing really good. They've got Zach Cole. Every single week on Instagram, they come out with like another just absurd finish. Like just some of the silkiest goals that I've seen in college lacrosse so far this year. Downright disrespectful what they're doing to some of these NEC opponents. So St. Joe's LIU in the first game of the NEC semifinals. You guys got a pick on this one?
Simply?
I think Joe's rolls.
I mean, actually, well, hold up. This is a big matchup though here, just personally with Philly and Long Island. So
I mean, this is everything for Long Island, but this is everything to us. But this isn't Long Island's team. Like CW Post was never. They changed from CW Post to LIU. This isn't Long Island's team. Hofstra's not in it this year. No, but Joe's rolls. Joe's is legit.
Say something nice. LIU has sick colors.
Oh, I'll say something nice about LIU.
Really good, like summer ball colors.
Their goalie tried to be a Barstool athlete and told me all his accolades at LIU last year, and he seemed to be a really good goaltender. So I think that he's probably pretty good.
Let me say briefly on all of these conferences that are non at large consideration, there is just a different energy when it's everyone. It's literally like you win the bid or you're all packing up, like cleaning out your locker, right? So when the NEC, the SoCon, CAA, mass media doesn't talk about them enough. Like if you're local, go out and support, go watch, it'll be high intensity lacrosse.
It would be bullshit if it's gonna be bullshit, but if St. Joe's didn't get into the tournament, it should be a war crime because I think that
Mike Pressler's the guy to do it, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that's a team also.
Throw away the records. Bryant probably has the best chance to get him, but I think St. Joe's is playing too well.
This is also this. I don't know if this will, but that was when I got in. That's when I bought in. Okay, Brown is legit. Because that was the game. Because I was like
the Tuesday trap game when Brown rolled.
Exactly.
That's the thesis. That is the thesis of my argument. Yeah. Followed closely by the People's Gold.
Quick update here. Dickinson just scored to make it 13-12 with 1:30 left. So I'm coming dangerously close to
Cornell bandwagon.
Yep. Cornell bandwagon. So we'll keep you updated in the next minute here. The other game in that NEC semifinal. So it will be Mike Pressler's Bryant taking on Hobart. And that was a 14-11 win for Bryant earlier in the season. Listen, I always think that they're one of the ugliest teams to watch just as far as their uniform setup goes. I feel like there are a lot of guys who wear black socks, black cleats. Not a huge fan of that look. But you can't knock Bryant on their success that they've had in May as a mid-major program. So I'm definitely going Bryant on this one. Who do you guys got?
Different energy in the season blacks. Battle tested, but in big games. I like Bryant.
Yeah, I'm a Bryant guy, especially in May. Pressler guy, and I've been talking about Mark O'Rourke. Hey, I think Bryant has actually underwhelmed this year. I thought they returned basically everyone from last year. The team that gave Virginia, the national champs, a scare in round one. So Bryant didn't play their best ball, but I'm not going to count them out. I agree. I think they could be the spoiler in that conference.
All right. Well, that is that'll take us over to the ASUN. They get things going at 2 p.m. You've got Utah taking on Bellarmine. Tight matchup in earlier in the season as Utah took home a 12-11 win in that one. Playing really well right now. I think they've racked up 6 wins in a row to get them to be the number 1 seed in this tournament. And then, Bellarmine, I really don't know. The only time I watched Bellarmine this year, I think they had Jacksonville in the snow, and I think Jacksonville won that game by like 45 goals. So that's about all I've seen out of Bellarmine. So as far as the eye test on this one goes, rolling with the Utes.
Go Utes. Great skiing country.
Yeah.
Quickly, a month ago on this podcast, I predicted that the Utah Holman firing would be the first of changing landscape in college lacrosse. I think Providence is the second. Providence firing Gabrielli and saying 500 is not good enough in the Big East. That's a sign to every other coach in the country that your seat just warmed up.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were going to touch on that, but that was tough. It was like the only school I ever talked to.
Guys, lacrosse, this is the whole thing. Money is flooding into this thing. As the Rabels do their thing at the PLL, as the boosters poured into the facilities, the expectations are going to get higher and higher. And the 6 and 8 seasons that people smile and wave on it just won't work anymore. Providence is a beautiful facility. They're in a regional hotbed. There's no reason that team can't be decent.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about the Providence really quick is just that in my opinion, they got fucked so hard I think that 2020 was his first real talented group. And then the next year, he just lost a bunch of guys. For 5th year, he lost Leahy to Notre Dame, and he just lost a bunch of guys.
Yeah, no, I consider him a friend. Like, I like him.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I'm trying to get out in front of my prediction. Like, more and more of this is going to happen, and everyone can look back to this.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. I'd like to see who takes over that program because their facilities are very nice.
The second game in the ASUN semifinals, that'll be 5 p.m. and that'll be Robert Morris taking on Air Force. This was an 11-10 win for Bobby Moe early in the season. They went 17 for 24 at the face-off stripe. I mean, Robert Morris, always one of those teams where, listen, I mean, come at, like, not a team that you probably want to find yourself playing against just because they're always so Canadian heavy, and it's just like such a different brand of lacrosse than I guess most teams are used to playing against. So Bobby Moe taking on Air Force. Who do you guys like in this one?
I'm split here. I come from a military type family on my dad's side, so it's hard for me to go against the vets. With that being said, I love the fact that Robert Morris lets the Poles play offense. So it's tough. I love when the Romo guys on the faceoff literally just run at the net, full chaos, and shoot. With that being said, I'll go with Air Force.
What else do you have? Which team has a guy named Eric Swaggerty? Bobby Moe does. And also, people forget, like, week 1 when everyone was like Duke national champs and they were up a bazillion in the first quarter, Bobby Moe fought back hard to make it like 20-8 in the first quarter. So the fight there alone has me going Bobby Moe.
Yeah, I mean their record and their resume, nothing on here looks good. But I'm just gonna trust the Canadians.
Eric Swaggerty.
I'm going to trust Eric Swaggerty. 3 out of their top 4 scorers are from Canada. The only other guy in that top 4 who's not a Canadian, he's from Rochester. So that's basically the same exact thing. So those guys are going to be playing greasy, getting the ball in the back of the net. I'm going with Robert Morris in that one. The America East, I really don't even want to talk about the America East that much. I love Vermont being able to turn things around. And, that was a team where it was tough to see Ian McKay online early on in the season. Didn't really know how to interact with any of his tweets. It looked like a really, really down year for the Catamounts. But then, they were able to turn things around in a big way. The first game gets going 4 p.m. It's Binghamton and UMBC. I don't have really a feel for this one. No offense to any of those guys.
Vermont's going to win it both.
Vermont.
Yep.
Vermont.
The only thing I'll say is if Vermont gets slated into the Maryland game in the tourney, I actually think Maryland deserves like an easier first round opponent. Does that make any sense? Like typically the overall 1 seed gets like kind of like a true cupcake. Vermont, like a lot of people thought at one point were decent. So it's more just fascinating because they're so bad on paper because they obviously went through that really, really tough spell. But now they've won like a ton in a row. And so it's more just interesting. But I think Vermont rolls in the America East. They probably win every game by 10.
I will say Maryland played Vermont last year in the first round too, and people were like upset alert, and Maryland was like, "Go fuck yourself. We're gonna."
By the way, I'm not saying upset alert. I think no. I'm just saying like they deserve like a Quinnipiac. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they've earned that with the way that they've played this year, and that team's like more talented than.
I thought you were going to go the Bonnies route, where I actually think that they'd get fucked more if they got Bonnies, because Brett.
Well, it's going to be the plan. It's going to be whoever wins, right? But
yeah.
All right, but yeah, I mean, they started off the year 2-6, and then they've just racked up 7 wins in a row. So Vermont all the way. We just mentioned the Bonnies in that one. The MAAC tournament, don't really have a feel for that one other than Brett Dobson. So we've got St. Bonnie's all the way in that one.
Roll the Bonnies. Gil Connors, their D coordinator, is a dear friend of mine. Will be at my wedding.
The CAA, the only thing that really I think perks up to me on this one is, so Drexel is hosting the tournament. They're the 4 seed, so they play against Delaware at 4 p.m. That was a tight game in the first go around. That was a 16-15 win for Delaware. Ty Kurtz had 8 goals for Delaware in that one. So I mean, I think you're hosting the tournament as the 4 seed. So it's going to be like pretty weird. Like you're going to have to show up to your home field in an away jersey. So I think that, as far as that tournament goes, like I think, I think that Delaware has a chance to shake things around in that tournament.
Yeah. I mean, and this will be my statement on both games. The CAA is like the classic throw the seeds out and just like whoever gets hot, it's going to be tough, like physical 7-6, like OT games. It's going to like rain, whatever the weather report says. Steve Boyle was my old coordinator, so I'll roll with Drexel just because he's my guy. But honestly, the best thing that could happen to Brown would be UMass wins it, just for our math. But my honest prediction is just like tight games, can go either direction. Probably Delaware is the most talented team in it, but I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I'm going Delaware. I think Owen Grant, the defender, is probably a future PLL player. I think people are going to be craving him next year.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, and then I've always liked Mike Robinson in JP Ward's games, so especially Mike Robinson. So yeah, I'll roll the Blue Hens. That's Long Island University.
Yeah, I mean that was probably just a little bit of Philly bias, but I'm never going to turn that off. The SoCon, Jacksonville spanked the shit out of VMI. That's a 5 p.m. game. That's probably going to happen the second go around. I will say the Richmond High Point game. The thing that's interesting here. So Richmond spanked High Point earlier in the season. That was a 15-6 win, but like Larken said, like in these mid majors, right? Like you have to win your conference or you're going home. So right now, like this could be the last time that Asher Nolting ever puts on that High Point uniform. I think that, season on the line, you put the ball in his stick, anything can happen. So I do think that Richmond High Point game could be pretty interesting. If Asher says like, I still got at least one more game to wear in this one.
Totally. I'm really excited to watch both of these games, the semi and then ultimately the final against Jacksonville. 3 teams that probably don't deserve the position they're in the sense of like you got to win to be in, but you play the schedule you're given and none of them mathematically deserve at-large consideration. One additional point to consider here, if High Point rolls and beats Richmond and Jacksonville, that sinks the math on the ACC equation for at-large selection because Jacksonville will beat Duke. So and Richmond. UVA. So for everyone who loves the ACC, you are not rooting for the Panthers. If you're the other direction and you want Ohio State or somebody else on the bubble to get in, you're an Asher Nolting stan.
Yeah, I think Richmond. Fins up, but I think Richmond probably wins the SoCon.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I think the actual like smart bet based on recent film is Richmond.
Yeah, I think Richmond's playing good ball, and I honestly, heading into the tournament, who knows, they could pull off an upset or two.
I think where Jacksonville, it's just like bad luck almost. They were super tested early in the season, and then the reality of like playing in the SoCon is you have cupcakes at some point in your league schedule. And that's almost just like bad luck that they were backloaded with them. So they're just not as battle tested. They're kind of on a different tempo and cadence right now.
And if you look at the SoCon, their SoCon schedule was front loaded where they had to
that's what I mean.
Oh, I thought you were saying the beginning of the year.
The entire thing was just front.
Yes.
So it's like they literally played like Mercer and BMI like a couple weeks ago. It's just not any way to prepare for the tournament.
Yeah.
But just for everyone to remember out there, Jacksonville is a lacrosse school, so you can head on over to store.barstoolsports.com and grab yourself a LAC school shirt. Fins up. I got to roll with Jacksonville in that one. I know that it has been a thing in years past where, the hot team in the SoCon who knocks off a couple of ACC teams ends up, they're not able to finish it out and win their conference and get into the tournament. I think that maybe that changes this year. The Big Ten semifinals, obviously games that everyone's going to be watching. I know that we've been, and by we, I mean, at least Dukes and myself, Larken, I don't know where you are with the Big Ten, but we've been pretty down on it. But 5:30, we've got Maryland taking on Hopkins. Listen, if Hopkins even gathers themselves up enough to put all the equipment on the bus, hop on the bus, make that trip over to College Park and like show up for the game, I think that that's a win in itself for Hopkins. I think that that's a game where Milliman gets the boys in the locker room and he says, listen guys, let's just go out there, have some fun. This is probably the last time we're all going to be playing together as a group. So just enjoy it. Which is not necessarily a pregame conversation you want to be having, but that's, I don't know.
Yeah. I almost think he's coaching for his job, just with respect to like, he's got to show life. Like he has to, the team needs to just like fight. Like, honestly, if they go out there and just start like punching people, that would be like a win. Like, I don't think the Johns Hopkins alumni base can take 2 shellackings of the degree that the first one was in 3 weeks. So my expectation is going to be like a dogfight with respect to like Hopkins has to respond. And can they beat Maryland? Hell no. Will Maryland win? Of course. I think it'll be a little tighter just in the sense of like, maybe Maryland will shoot a little poorly or whatever.
2010.
But yeah, but to you guys' point, like Hop's got to show some life, man. I mean, just to build, like for recruiting and for everything that Hop cares about in this world, they got to show up.
I don't even know if there's Hopkins listeners still because we just shit on them week in, week out. But I will say that I think it will be a shit pumping to the nth degree again. I think that they did it already at Homewood. I actually ranked Maryland at Homewood as the number 1 team in the country. I think Maryland playing Hopkins at College Park will probably get bumped to number 1 next week. Milliman, it will get fired. That was my take. I think that you can't send a message, especially as you talk about Gabrielli and Utah firing Holman, how this was set off. Like, you can't, 500 is not okay. If you're Hopkins, you're not fighting for your season or you're not fighting for, like, your job. You're fighting for your program at this point. I genuinely think that their program, if they have Milliman for 1, maybe even next year if they go below 500, they need someone to come in that has Hopkins roots and to lift the program back up. They need someone that's going to connect with the players and rejuvenate the program. So I'm calling for Milliman's job.
I think there's a couple things. One, the AD is the one who hired him. She got the Hopkins job and her first coaching hire was him. I think he'll get another year. Like I've said in the past, like I consider John Grant Jr. a friend. I hope that they get it going. So my prediction is that he gets 1 more season, but next season is like a show me year. It's a true contract year. If not, they're going to circle the wagons, put up a ton of money and go try and get a big boy.
Who do you think they would get? Like, who do you think fixes Hopkins?
The issue is that we already know, this is the thing, what the last search tells us, because remember, he was not their first choice, is that the top 5 coaches, top 10 coaches, look at that as a lose-lose job. You have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Here's an example, Nebraska football. I'm a diehard fan. It's unfair fan expectation based on reality. Hopkins is now that. Hopkins' roster is not as good as Virginia and Maryland, but the fan base expects you to win like Virginia and Maryland in year 1. So, like, blame whoever you want, but I don't think like an Andy Shea or whoever is going to take that gig unless the money is just flat out insane. So there's two options in my mind. One is you go with another kind of like up and coming, young, kind of like risky type coach. I don't think that'll appease the fan base. Option two, you back up the brink truck, you go get somebody who's established, and you give him a 10-year type contract.
You don't think that they would try to get Galloway now before someone else does?
I don't think Galloway would. I mean this. I don't know if Galloway would take that job. Like, this is the thing about Hopkins' job.
That's so sick.
This is what people need to understand. It's a really challenging job because they literally expect you to go 12-3. And they are currently like a 4 games below 500 group. And let's take Gary Gate as an example. He's going to get a long leash because he's the godfather of lacrosse. He's the Scott Frost of Nebraska. He's getting leash. He gets more time because he's the golden boy. Like, if you're some random brother who played it wherever and you're going to Hop, I mean, you might be made the martyr. You might be sent to slaughter, right? So if you're Jacksonville and you're making good money and they're building new facilities and you get to play in the SoCon and go 12-2 and take your wife to the beach and live the dream and like fish, do you want to go live in Balti and get shellacked by John Tillman twice a year? I don't know. I just don't know.
Crab cakes.
And have to listen to the band. No, I think that Hopkins is in for a few really, really, really dark years, and then 99 comes around to save.
I think two names to look at obviously are Harrison and Rabel. And then what they would do obviously is they would be like CEO type coaches, and they would go get really qualified coordinators and pay the coordinators like head coach type money.
You don't think any shot Benson?
I mean, he is obviously doing a hell of a job, but I think there's bad blood both directions for how it ended there with Petro. And by the way, like I said, I think Millman's getting another year, and I hope they turn it around.
The second game in that Big Ten semifinal is going to be Rutgers and Ohio State. Got a gripe with both of these teams, but earlier in the season, these two teams met. It was a Sunday afternoon in Rutgers, and it was an 18-7 win for the Scarlet Knights. A score that looks pretty big, but again, like this, this game was. I don't know. I think it looked a whole lot worse than it actually was. Ohio State got out to an early lead. Rutgers was, kind of just pissing the ball away every possession. But then they came out and they got on top with that win. Rutgers and Ohio State, one of these teams has to lose. And I think one of these teams, whoever loses, you can't put them in the tournament. So who do you see being left out? I
think Ohio State recovers from the first go round, and I think that they beat them 12-10. I think Rutgers falls in the rankings. They still get in, but they go on the road. I think they go to Princeton in the first round. That's my prediction. Ohio State beats Rutgers. Rutgers travels to Princeton.
Yeah, I have Ohio State by 10. Rutgers missing the tournament.
All right, love it. And then Patriot League also gets going on Friday. So you've got Lehigh. They hate the troops. They took down Navy in the quarterfinals. Pretty un-American of them, but that was a win that they needed to have. Pretty solid performance out of Lehigh. They get to go up against number 1 seed BU. They lost to Boston just a couple weeks ago in the dying moments of that game. It was a 9-8 decision. And then we've also got Army taking on Loyola, and Army won that game earlier in the season, 14-12. Who do you guys like advancing to the Patriot League championship? Those games are Friday at 4 p.m. and then 7 p.m.
I like Army just because of Nick Turn. I don't think Loyola can score with them. I think Army 15-12. And for similar reasons, I like BU over Lehigh. Lehigh's scrappy. They win a lot of draws, but they just don't have the guys to gain and initiate leverage on the BU polls. I don't think Lehigh can score in a track race. So I think BU rolls away from it. And then I think BU Army obviously play later that weekend for the chance to go on the road in round 1.
Yeah, I like BU beating Lehigh. I like Loyola to beat Army just because I think that would help my Rutgers missing the tournament case. But I do think that if Army beats Loyola, that Army wins the Patlax.
Yeah, and whoever wins Patlax, very, very likely away seed for one of the Ivy League teams that gets in because of travel considerations. So for Brown, for Princeton, for Penn, for Yale, very, very likely you see either BU or Army in round 1. Give us
an Army Cornell rematch. I would not be opposed to that one. All right, so those are your conference tournament semifinals. Everything wraps up this weekend. So on Saturday, we've got the SoCon Championship. That'll be at noon on ESPN Plus. Also at noon on ESPNU, you've got the America East Championship. ASUN, they play 2 p.m. on Saturday. That'll be on ESPN Plus. CAA, 2 p.m. on LAC Sports Network. Big East Championship, that'll be 4:30 p.m. CBS Sports Network. So get yourself to a bar and watch all the tomfoolery that's involved there with some bid thievery. We've got the Big Ten Championship, which is just a formality for Maryland. That'll be 8 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. And then everything wraps up on Sunday. We've got both games at noon with the Patriot League on CBS Sports Network and the Ivy League as Brown looks to win the Ivy League Championship at noon on ESPNU. Before we get out of here, the final game, just a real quick prediction. Duke and Notre Dame, basically a tournament game. So who is advancing into May and whose season is over? Dukes?
Notre Dame by 5+. That's really all I have to say. Pac-Cav, Liam Ensman's the best goalie in the nation. As you might see in the goalie challenge next week, Will Perry confirmed that. But yeah, you guys know I love Notre Dame. Notre Dame by 5.
Yeah, I think it'll be a hell of a lacrosse game. I can't wait to watch. But I think it's tied late. I think Entenmann makes a big save potentially. And then I think timeout. We have Kavanaugh to Kavanaugh, ice in your veins, a recreation of one of Matt's famous goals. Celebration will be unreal. And Notre Dame will be the toughest draw for a home team in the NCAA tournament. No question about it. No one wants them.
I want an overtime game. I want Notre Dame to win in overtime. And then I want Coach Ryder Garnsey to run out into the field and deadfish Selly. All right. And that wraps up this, the last weekend before the actual tournament gets going. Unbelievable slate of games that we have going starting today, all the way through Sunday. Larken, thank you again for hopping on as always. Make sure that you guys are following him on Twitter and Instagram at LKemp42. Make sure that you're following us on our socials. We are at the Crease Dive on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure that you guys are subscribing to the YouTube channel. We've got a goalie challenge between Dukes and Will Perry coming out later, as well as all these podcasts coming up on YouTube. And in the meantime, we'll be keeping it low to high to the day we die. We out.